the last 2 years, Standard Chartered has been expanding aggressively in Africa as the bank seeks to capitalize on the continent's extraordinary economic growth. I'm joined today by V. Shankar, the Chief Executive of Standard Chartered for Europe, the Middle East and Africa. We're here to discuss basically Africa's economic outlook over the next few years. So thank you for your time today,
Delighted
Shankar.
to be here, James. Terrific.
Within the broader Africa story, obviously East Africa has been a region of great promise in the last couple of years, and the outlook as well is very strong as we see obviously infrastructure projects and commodity projects come to the fore. What's your sort of take on the growth prospects there longer term, and what kind of role can Standard Chartered play within East Africa specifically?
We have been in Africa for over 150 years, and we are excited by the prospects of Africa. If you fast forward to the next 20, 30 years, you have to be excited by the potential of Africa, whether you look at it from a demographic standpoint or simply the power of the consumer or the potential for agriculture, infrastructure, resources. I think the potential in Africa is not just in East Africa, it's in West Africa, it's in Southern Africa. In fact, it's across Sub-Saharan Africa. If you look at economic history over the recent past, this is a broad generalization. In the 60s and 70s, the whole world was lifted by a tide called the United States of America. In the 90s and in the early part of this century, that tide has been called China. If I look at the next 20, 30 years, that tide may well be Africa. So I'm excited.
Great. You mentioned China there. Obviously, one of the big stories emerging in recent years has been this idea of growing trade between sort of South-South economies, and in particular China and Africa. Do you think that bilateral trade relationship between China and Africa has moved beyond just a commodity-based relationship? And do you think it is now perhaps deeper and closer than it was before?
First of all, let's look at the numbers. If my memory serves me right, China-Africa trade at the beginning of this century was close to about $8 billion. Today, it exceeds $200 billion. It's grown 25 times over 12 to 13 years. That's a phenomenal pace. And as a country, I think I'm right in saying that China is Africa's largest trade partner. Europe is higher, but then Europe is a conglomeration of many countries. It has gone beyond just resources. It's more than copper and oil. So if you look at a country like Ethiopia, there are about 200 Chinese companies who have established operations there. If you look at the telecom space, companies like Huawei and ZTE are there. If you look at agriculture, yes, you see the Chinese companies. And even in infrastructure, whether you look at airports or roads or bridges, you see Chinese companies there. The story moving forward, and this is speculative, is whether China will move more of its manufacturing to Africa, given that over a period of time, some of the lower end production may need to shift out of China. And that's normal economic history.
Sure. And obviously, Shankar, now you're based in Dubai and you work a lot in the Gulf as well. I'm curious to know how the relationship between the Gulf states and emerging economies in Africa is developing, and do you see this as a key relationship moving forward?
Geography, time and distance is on the side of that relationship really turbocharging. The most recent visible example was Investment Corporation of Dubai's investment into Dangote Cement. $300 million investment, and they've also announced that it is just step one of a broader participation in the Dangote Group's growth plans. And they have indicated numbers of somewhere upwards of $1 billion. But that's the most recent. But people forget that there are companies like Dubai Ports, Dubai World, operate 6 to 7 ports in Africa, both North Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa. Companies like Emirates Airlines flies to more than 25 or 26 cities in Africa. Kuwait companies like Agility are present in Africa. So there is a growing trade. I mean, for me, the best indicator of that is actually flights I take to Africa on Emirates Airlines. The number of African travelers on that aircraft is incredible. But more importantly, not all of them terminate their journey in Dubai. They are using increasingly Dubai as a transit point to fly on to Asia or even Europe. So it is growing.
Now, for the last 2 years, you've been very active across the African continent. What can we expect for 2015, and perhaps what are your key objectives for Africa?
I'm going to be terribly boring. It's more of the same. Africa is a great part of our history, and it's going to remain an exciting part of our future for Standard Chartered. It's about the fastest growing part of our business, obviously coming off a reasonably small base. What do I see in Africa? We are excited by the prospect for consumer. We are excited by the prospect for agriculture, resources, infrastructure, hospitality, transportation, tourism. So you can go across sectors, and then you look at the growth potential in terms of the demographics. Africa will have more people of a working age by 2040 than either India or China. That can produce tremendous demographic dividend if we get lots of other things right. It can also produce problems if we don't, if Africa does not produce enough jobs. But there's a great potential out there.
Great. Shankar, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, James.
Thank you.
Pleasure talking to you.